Joining me tonight is independent political strategist and Lincoln Project co-founder, Reed Galen. Thanks for being here, Reed.
Thanks, Ron.
Lincoln Project executive director and a former director at the National Security Council, Sarah Lenti. Thanks for making the time again, Sarah.
Of course, good afternoon.
And legendary media consultant and Lincoln Project senior advisor, Stuart Stevens. Stuart, it's great to have you again.
Good to be here, buddy.
Reed, before we get started, I'd love to pass it to you to talk about, first of all, and just a battleground update, give folks the lay of the land, and if you could also talk about the stakes that we're facing right now, that'd be great.
Sure, and thanks, Ron, as always, for taking the helm here, and everybody, thanks for joining. It's always amazing to me to see how many people have tuned in, and I could not be more humbled and flattered by that. We're 41 days, I think, away from Election Day now. Now things are starting to heat up. If you're a football fan, it's like being inside the 20-yard line. Time and space are compressing. And so I think that the stakes are going up. Millions of Americans have either voted or have their ballots now. And so, this is the election. It is Election Day for the next month and a half or so. And so in the battleground states, as Stuart said just before we went live, they're called battleground states for a reason. They're not easy to win. It's a constant fight from the moment that people get into a race until all the ballots are counted, and they will all be counted. And so, I think that we feel good about where Vice President Biden is. I think we feel really great about the job that Mike Madrid and Zach Chakowski and our entire political team have done targeting those voters in these states from Florida and North Carolina, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Arizona. Ohio even looks to be moving a little bit away from Trump. And so I think that the work that everyone here does, not only the people on this screen here, but everyone out there who makes this happen on a daily basis, whether or not it's with a $5 contribution or a text to a friend or joining a Facebook group, it's been an incredible effort. If you had told us when we started this 9 or so months ago that we'd all be sitting here on the precipice of really making history as a country, I'm not sure that I would have believed you. What are the stakes? I think the stakes are as high as they've ever been. Steve Schmidt and I were talking this morning about President Trump's comments from the podium last night about how he's going to take a wait and see attitude on whether or not he'll, accede to a peaceful transition of power. And I think that the conclusion we came to is that when you face high stakes, you can really take two positions on it. One is you can take it from a position of fear, or you can take it from a position of preparation and resolution. And I think that we have consistently been prepared, and I believe we're resolute. And I think that this is what the American people are going to say to Donald Trump between now and Election Day, and even after, is we will vote, you will lose, and you will leave. And I think that we should all say that. Tell it to your friends, share it on your social media outlets, make sure the president hears it loud and clear, make sure that every Republican senator who's aided and abetted him to this very day or put out some milquetoast statement about what the president said. Every legislator in every state who we hear from the Atlantic, might be considering doing something untoward in the wake of the election. We are watching. The wide awakes in true Abraham Lincoln parlance have arrived. And we will be wide awake between now and Election Day and beyond. And so I can only say thank you to the literally millions of people who make up the Lincoln Project. It is far more than just us. It is all of you. It is all of us together. And I think that all of us together are going to be the defining factor among many, but one of them in this election. And so thank you so much. I can't wait to answer your questions. And Ron, I'll turn it back to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Reed. And it is truly incredible what this movement has become. Sarah, can we go to you for an operational update on what the Lincoln Project is doing right now?
Yep, so sounds good. Thanks so much. And thanks to all the almost 5,000 of you who are on tonight. We are really grateful. So our team has grown. We have 50 full-time staffers. We have 35 interns. We have 8 founders. That takes us to 94. I think you all know that our primary followings are on Twitter and Facebook and now Instagram a bit. Our average donation is $56, which tells us that it's not people coming in with millions and millions of dollars that are making a difference. It's you, it's the $5 donors, it's the $10 donors. So we appreciate everything that you do and every dime that you've given to us. I think Reed mentioned Mike Madrid and Zach Chakowski earlier, who are they're the leaders of our political team. And what they've done is they've taken not advantage, but we're in a moment with COVID where we can't go door to door and knock. And so they have drilled down with data in 3 specific states. Primarily, we're in Arizona, we're in Florida, we're in Pennsylvania. We're also in North Carolina, Michigan, and Wisconsin, but primarily Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Florida, really drilling down into certain precincts and counties, targeting specific voters. 3 to 5% of what or who we need to move. Republicans and independents in those areas. We have specific messaging that we are reaching out to them with, which we think is going to make the difference in making sure that they either sit it out for Donald this time or cast a vote for President Biden. In addition, we've got the podcast that goes on a weekly basis. We have LPTV right now. You see a stream of ads from us constantly. What else can I add? We're doing these town halls. It's Facebook Lives. We're thrilled to be in the final stretch. And all I can say is just everybody make sure that your friends and families are registered and that you're voting and voting early.
And also don't forget the incredible volunteers that make up, I don't know, 50, 60,000 of our grassroots organizing groups on Facebook, which are writing postcards and organizing on the ground to help folks in our most critical battleground areas.
And we're really grateful for the Hispanic Coalition, the Women's Coalition, the Faith Coalition. We have coalitions every year, the Veterans Coalition. If you want a coalition, reach out to us. We'll find one for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. Stuart Stevens, first of all, it's great to have you on tonight. And I wonder if you could share with folks what you see as the current state of the Republican Party. You just wrote a book about this called "It Was All a Lie," and this election is different from any other in recent memory. And I'd love for you to share your thoughts on the importance of putting country over party this year.
Yeah, Ron, it's great to be here. Look, I finished this book called "It Was All a Lie," how the Republican Party became Donald Trump about a year ago. It's a pretty bleak view of the party. I've come in recent weeks to the conclusion I was way overly optimistic. I never thought stuff that we've seen happen would happen. I never thought the party would not have a platform. They would just have this sort of Führer oath. I mean, if you've been involved in, if you've had the misfortune, I would say, to be involved in convention platform fights, and before they were like street fights. I mean, they were, you know, nobody left alive. Now, just to say that this is all about Donald Trump is just extraordinary to me. I said the other day, after the passing of the great justice, that look, Lindsey Graham is problematic, but he just can't eat what he said about not having a vote during an election. A couple of friends of mine laughed at me and said, like, dude, you still don't get it. It turns out they were right. I really didn't think that would happen. I just continue to not be able to fathom the lack of basic self-respect and dignity. You know, everything that we're taught from the time, you know, we're born by our teachers, our parents, our coaches, our scout leaders, our people we work with, is that integrity matters. And it's as if we're in this alternative universe. And my only analysis is that I think that when a group of people get together, they like this, and they all do something they know they shouldn't be doing, that they reinforce each other, and it sort of creates this sort of cowards caucus. And you're able to feel better about yourself if the other people are as disappointing as you are, sort of grade on the curve. I think that it's does sort of prove my thesis, which was, when I wrote this book, which was that Donald Trump didn't hijack the Republican Party, that the Republican Party had evolved in the direction of Donald Trump, and he just realized it. I mean, basically, Donald Trump came along and was shrewd enough to realize that if I promise the Republican Party power, they'll let me do anything I want. All the stuff they say are fundamental values, it doesn't really mean anything to them. It's just about winning. It's all transactional. And, you know, as conservatives, we used to mock liberals for believing in situational ethics, that there were no constants. Now we're the party of situational ethics. It's extraordinary. Everything is a transaction. Everything is negotiable. I think the only path forward here is to win and win big. This can't be just an era victory. It needs to be a referendum on decency itself, a referendum on the country, because that's really what this is about. We've never had an election like this for so many reasons. We've never had an election where so many people have died in recent months. I mean, death itself is on the ballot because Donald Trump is not going to have a plan for COVID. He's just not. I mean, he's already said it's over. It doesn't really impact anybody. So a lot of people are going to keep dying. 80% of those who have died from COVID-19 are 65 or older. That's over 160,000 senior citizens. Today, Donald Trump is trying to say he's going to send the survivors a $200 Medicare prescription take. Like, okay, I know I killed a lot of your family, but look, here's $200. It's just all so craven. I was there in Austin in 2000 when we thought we lost, we thought we won. And I remember walking out at dawn that next morning of the headquarters. And somebody said, this thing could take a couple of days to settle. And we all said, no, that's crazy. We'll know by the end of tonight. And it lasted, 31 days? So the way to avoid that is to win Florida. The way to avoid that is to win big. And that's what we're about. We're not about small victories. We're about crushing victories that will show this what this country really is about. And every one of you have been a tremendous contributor to this. There's going to be some really bad days ahead. These debates, it's really hard to win 3 debates. So I think we ought to expect that Biden's going to have a bad night. I hope it's not this Tuesday, but it's just the law of averages. I mean, the best quarterbacks throw interceptions. And part of the role that I think we can play is to keep everyone's confidence up, to keep their spirits up. I mean, if I ran the Democratic Party right now, I would be out there saying, there are more of us than them. This is our moment. Walk with confidence. We are going to seize this day and we will make history. And there's a sort of odd hangover from 16 that shouldn't affect this race. We are more of them. I think that we have a higher purpose than they do, which I think is something that really motivates people. We're appealing to people's best angels, not their darkest. So there's a lot ahead. There'll be a lot of ups and downs, but we can win this.
Thanks, Stuart. Okay, we're going to get
to what Stuart said.
Everything Stuart said. We're going to get to as many of your questions as we can here. And Reed, I want you to take this first one because we talked about it when we were taping the podcast this morning. So Anna Rake from Virginia writes, I'm worried that Joe is not hitting the swing states enough. He and Kamala are not traveling and meeting with locals. The news is being dominated by Trump and whatever stupidity tumbles out of his mouth. He seems to be using the same tactics as 2016, where he uses the media to give him free press, like the ABC town hall. I have family in the Midwest, sadly Trump supporters, and their take on Joe is that he is always at home, reads off a teleprompter, and won't meet with reporters like Wallace, Fox News. Are my concerns legitimate?
Well, look, as someone who's an old advanced man, I'm always partial to candidates being on the road. I think that, right now, my guess is Vice President Biden is preparing for the debate on Tuesday. If I were advising him, I'd say, give him a day out on the road. As Stuart sat through far more of these things at this level than the rest of us can imagine. But at some point, you need a little, stress reliever. A lot of candidates like to be out and about, obviously different now. I think you'll see a lot more of that coming in the, in October 1 and beyond. I mean, nobody's going to say, Joe Biden didn't win this because he wasn't in Fayetteville, North Carolina on the 24th, right? Like, it's not going to happen. I think that, when I was talking to a reporter the other day, because the Trump campaign put out this thing that it's like worth $40 million a week when Donald Trump is traveling the country and blah, 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 blah. Well, the question is, yes, you're garnering television time. But if the things that you say on the stump are so outrageous that that's what the news reports, then you're just scaring the hell out of like average people. Because that's not like regular people don't think the way he talks. And so the question is, have you bought yourself $40 million of positive advertising or $40 million of negative advertising? And I think that the dynamic of the media is different today because so much of it is always taken up with COVID, that he doesn't get the free pass that he did. I think that groups like the Lincoln Project also occupy a lot more of the space. I think that, the Biden campaign being up with tens of millions, like $60-70 million a week of television advertising now, and probably the sky's the limit on that. It's just not the same race. And frankly, for Trump, Joe Biden is not nearly the foil that Hillary Clinton was. And so I think that, we should always, want to see our candidates, the standard bearers more. But there's plenty of time for both Vice President Biden and Senator Harris to be out in those states when people will still be paying attention and voting.
Yeah, terrific. Sarah, I want you to take this next one from Kathy Kirby, who writes that she's feeling really defeated this week, triggered by the passing of RBG and Trump's refusal to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Excuse me. The one big positive is that everyone in my family, Virginia and New Jersey, has just received our absentee ballots. They are intact and we will be submitting them in person in the coming days. My question or comment is, what or how are you as Lincoln Project members able to stay positive, focused, and driven amongst the constant barrage of craziness in these unsettling times? Most days I'm confident democracy will prevail, and other days it feels like for the first time in my 50 years, the deck is stacked against a free and fair election.
Remind me of her first name. Kathy. So Kathy, I tell you, which I think a lot of women after the passing of Justice Ginsburg were really taken aback. It wasn't expected. I mean, we knew that she was not doing well, but it was a surprise. But I would say, do not dismay. One of the things that keeps me going is that this is going to be a historic election. I think we're going to see a change. All of the numbers at the moment are suggesting of that in the battleground states. I'll also tell you anecdotally that there's a group out there called vote.org. And in the past, over this entire last 3 months, they've been monitoring where voter registrations were now as compared to the same days in 2018. And on any given day, registration is up 700% to 1,000%. There are people, there are very diligent and concerned lawyers all over the United States that are getting ready for the battle that is about to become. It seems like people are very motivated to vote and vote early. So I think all we can do is not dismay, to understand the importance of voting in this election, to share that with your friends and family, to volunteer if you can, and to just keep the faith.
Yeah, and because any alternative is just not acceptable.
Yep.
Stuart, this one is tailor-made for you from Diane Ettinger Miracle. I think I'm saying her last name correctly. Many people I know plan to vote Republican because that is their family tradition. They feel it would be disloyal to vote any other way. How do you convince these people that the current Republican Party bears no resemblance to the party their families have supported in the past? There's a large voting bloc that can be won if they can be convinced.
Well, I think it's a great question. I think the thing to do is to ask them, why did you become a Republican? Back in the dark ages, say 4 years ago, I think that there would have been 90% plus agreement on a few principles. Character counts. We're for very strongly pro-legal immigration. Ronald Reagan announced in front of the Statue of Liberty, signed a bill that made everyone in the country before 1973 legal. We were strong on Russia. The deficit mattered, free trade. All of these issues, it's not that the party has drifted away from them, but we're actively against these parties. I mean, you remember when Ronald Reagan was president, to be born in America was to realize you'd won life's lottery. Now, to be born in America, under Trump's view of America, we're victims. And the whole idea of being a victim party is so repugnant to everything that Republicans were for, the idea of personal responsibility, of liberty. And I think you just have to say, if you go back to Clinton, and probably a lot of Diane's relatives are old enough to remember the Clinton years, We went out and said that culture was the most important part of the country. That was the soul of the nation. It was more important than any single issue. The most effective ads we made in the Bush campaign were restoring honor and dignity to the White House.
And he finished every speech in 2000 that way.
But that's right. And it was frankly what moved voters the most. And can anybody really point to Donald Trump and say, I'd like my son, my daughter to be like that person? That's a terrible thing. And it's toxic for the culture. When it becomes normalized to treat people the way Donald Trump keeps, to mock war heroes like John McCain, to mock the disabled, to the way he talks about women, it's just disgusting. And you say, well, those are just words. Well, you know, when Reagan was president, we said words could change the world. They could help bring down the Soviet Union. And we were right then. So I would say to tell them, we were right then, we're wrong now, and let's get back to those principles and values that made us right.
So I think we might have lost Ron. So I'll just pick it up here. So Stuart, just looking forward to next week. As I mentioned earlier, you've sat through just a ton of these debate prep sessions with presidential aspirants, with presidents. First, can you give everybody just a little sense of what it's like to be in that room? And then second, I'd like to hear from both you and Sarah what you expect to see next week.
Well, you know, one of the great advantages that Biden has going into this debate is that he just debated a bunch. And, you know, like anything in life, you do it more, you tend to get better. That's one of the reasons that incumbent presidents usually have a first bad debate. They're used to walking into a room, people play hail to the chief, they're nice to them. They're not used to being on stage with somebody getting in their face. I think that Biden has taken shots before in these other debates. I think that'll help him. To me, the key to debating is understanding the larger argument. I look at it as sort of arguments in front of a jury. It's not about zingers. It's not about winning each moment. It's about presenting a rationale for your candidacy. And I think that Biden has a very good understanding of this. You know, what Biden has done, I think, is really extraordinary. To come out as a front runner like he did, and then to lose as he did, and not do something crazy to remake the candidacy, and then win. I mean, that's really amazing. That's like being down 40-0 in the third quarter in the Super Bowl, and you stick with your game plan and win.
We saw that a couple of years ago.
And you know, those guys knew what they were doing. So I have a lot of respect for the Biden campaign. He has a group around him. I know most of these people. It's a small group. They've been down the road before with him. So I think he'll come out of there very focused, very centered, and I think he'll prosecute Donald Trump.
And I
Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, I was asking a question about the debate while we were waiting for you to jump back in. So Sarah, what do you think you're going to see next week?
Well, I think you're going to see a very accomplished debater. He's been doing this for 47 years. He debated on the VP stage under Obama. You can recall that when he was in 2008, he was running for president, and even in the debate against Obama, in Des Moines, Iowa, he was so sharp. He was so pointed, and we know he has it in him to take strikes at the president, and he will. And I think, you know, we saw on the town hall last week, he was very specific on facts and details, as you know, with related to the vaccine and so forth. So I think you're going to see an empathetic man who can take shots and who can also nail him when it comes to policy.
So apologies for dropping out there, had some technical issues, but let's get to another listener question from Risa Feely. She says, it's being reported that Trump is exploring the idea of Republican governors replacing electors in their states who then all vote for Trump regardless of which candidate won that state. Is this legal? Can you explain how this would or wouldn't work and the risks and trade-offs for a governor who actually does this? On paper, it sounds creative, but in reality, it sounds extremely problematic for any governor who tries it. Reed, do you want to take that first? And then Sarah, you've got lots of experience with state legislatures, having worked at the RSLC. Maybe you have something to add to that as well.
So I will absolutely bungle the constitutional piece of this. There are people who know far better than this. I'm at best a jailhouse lawyer on a good day. But I would say that, there are all these, loopholes in the Constitution and how electors can be chosen and who can override those things. I mean, I think that for a republic, for any governor or any legislature to do something like this is basically saying, I have decided that the American Republic is, as we've known it for 240 plus years, has come to an end. That I no longer care about what it means to represent people. I am only here for my own power and self-aggrandizement, and I will do whatever it takes. We will, if this happens, I mean, not to overstate it, but you could see tens of millions of people in the streets because a lot of people aren't going to put up with it, nor should we. And so I think, is it legal? I mean, I'm sure there's some Republican lawyer at the RNC building in DC who's come up with this, flow chart of arrows and everything else that shows you how you can get away with it. But I think here's the larger point, and this goes to something like what McConnell did, in the wake of Justice Ginsburg, which is, as my dad used to say when I was a teenager, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And this is a you should not moment for a lot of these people. And so I think that in the coming days and weeks, we will be reminding all of those people of their oaths. We will be ensuring that every one of their voters in their states knows who they are and what's expected of them. And I think that we're going to have to keep the pressure on because they're going to get enormous pressure from the White House. They're going to get enormous pressure from Trump, from the right-wing media, whether or not it's Fox or OANN or Mark Levin or all those weirdos on right-wing radio saying, if you love Donald Trump and you love America, you're going to do this. They're all gone. Consciously, they're all gone. And so we shouldn't put their idea of anything past them, but the reality of that is a lot further away.
Yeah. Sarah, anything to add on that front?
Yeah, I think what we know is that Republicans control both legislative chambers in 6 of the most closely watched battleground states. They are Arizona, Florida, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. 2 of those states have Republican governors, Arizona and Florida, and we know how important Florida is. And that the thought is that if they are able, the state is able to justify that there have been rampant fraud, claims of rampant fraud, they can then ask the state legislators to set aside the popular vote and exercise their power to choose state electors directly. And so they go to loyalists who would then cast a vote, not on behalf of the popular vote, but on behalf of what they think the will of the people is. And yes, if that sounds undemocratic, it is, but it's apparently the plans that are kind of in the works.
Okay.
I have one question that was fed to me from one of our interns, Dad. She's now an employee. So his name is Pop Salkowitz, and he is Kate's father, and he's been on every town hall. Apparently, it has never been able to get a question answered. So I want to pose this, and whoever wants to answer it can. So here it is. It is, I am asking how they, Stu, Ron, and Reed would advise Biden to handle Trump in the debates. He will be making shit up, lying, probably interrupting all the time, trying to fact check him for 90 minutes is a fool's errand and a waste of time.
Man, Reed's got a great answer to this question.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta punch him in the nose metaphorically. And if he tries that stuff where he like walks around behind you, like he did to Hillary, he's got to go, hey, man, what are you doing? It's not where you belong. You got your chair over there. You go stand over there and we'll talk. I'm not going to back down like these other guys did when they're in debates with you. You know where you belong. You probably belong in Mar-a-Lago. The thing that we forget is that Biden's a fighter. Like he's not afraid to throw a punch. But I think that he also, as we saw in Return of the Jedi and in The Empire Strikes Back, he must face Darth Vader, and he must do it, and he must prosecute him for his crimes. And this is not a policy debate. Biden will have the facts and figures in his head, as any good former senator would, but he's going to have to come to this with emotion and powers. As we all know, like to put this at his basis level, probably too base. This is a game of capture the flag. Donald Trump has the flag. We're going to have to go take it from him. And Biden's going to have to prove to the American people that he's ready to do that and that it's time for Trump to go.
Yeah.
I don't know
With
what
strength, with
like I said,
authority.
Stuart sat
Yeah.
in more green rooms than I can imagine. So
Yeah, Stuart, what's your take?
I think he has to go at Trump. I think in his opening statement, he needs to call him the worst president in history of the country and continue to prosecute him. Look, if I was Biden, I would have a few lines to use against Trump when he does that. Like, is anybody really going to believe the man who told us to drink bleach? As Ted Cruz says, he's a pathological liar. And he's just going to keep lying. And his lies are killing people. I think Biden, part of what you do in a debate is you rally your troops. And I think Democrats are really dying to see someone, or the country is, to stand up to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So just to get up there, get in this ridiculous guy's face and call him out from the beginning until the end, I think will energize the resistance out there. And I think I think it's going to be a good night. Biden knows what he's doing. He's been there before. He had a good debate against Paul Ryan, I have to say. He knows what he's doing.
Okay, let's go to Dan Wingard from Alabama. He writes, a question for any of the panelists who would like to answer it. Absent 51 votes to block up or down votes on a new Supreme Court justice, is there anything procedurally
Reed, you're on mute.
I'm just going to keep talking on mute as if you're not here. So Ron, I was just finishing your question. Is there anything procedurally that can be done to delay or block a
Yes.
Supreme Court nominee at this point?
Exactly, to prevent Trump and McConnell from replacing RBG on the court between now and Inauguration Day. Sorry about that.
I don't know that any of us are parliamentarians, but the numbers don't seem to be in favor of that. So,
right. Right. Okay. Cheryl Santiago writes, it seems there is no way to change the minds or what's left of them of Trump's base, no matter what facts they're presented with. So do you agree that getting the many voters who came out for Obama but didn't vote in 2016 is the key to victory for Biden? If so, any innovative ideas on ways to do that?
I'll take that.
Yeah.
For all the industry, books, articles, shows of analyzing Trump voters, how did Trump win? In many ways, Trump won for one simple reason. He ran in a year in which a Republican could win with 46.1%. Mitt Romney lost with 47.2%. Now, how did that happen? Third party vote doubled over 2012. And for the first time, non-white vote in 20 years declined. So take Wisconsin. Romney lost Wisconsin by 7, not particularly close. Trump won it by just under 1%. But Mitt Romney got more votes than Donald Trump. So how did that happen? Because 40 to 50,000 voters didn't show up in the greater Milwaukee area. So I think that analysis is right. I think it should not be about persuasion of Trump voters. I think if those Trump should welcome them, baptize them, take them down to the river, thank them for coming over, ask them to bring a family member, all sins forgiven, we're in this together. But I wouldn't spend any time or effort particularly focused on that. Trump has always benefited from the inability to imagine. And a lot of people could not imagine Donald Trump winning, and I think they didn't vote. I think she left a lot of votes on the table. That's not going to happen this time. And I think the non-white vote is going to be at a record level. I mean, you can say what's happening across the country, or there's civil disturbances, they're protests, and they are. There are calls for justice, and they are. But they're also get out the vote rallies. And if you held an election this Tuesday, take the state of Wisconsin, nobody can convince me you're not going to have the highest non-white turnout you've ever had. This won't be the first time that African Americans have saved America from our worst instincts. And I think it's going to happen again.
And I don't think have we really thought, I mean, we're all thinking about it, but when you think about the compressed timeline of George Floyd, Kenosha, Breonna Taylor, I mean, it's insane what's been going on the past 4 months. And if that's not motivation for people to vote, I don't know what is.
And let me just, extend what Sarah said too, is Ron, and, I mean, to Stuart's point about 2016, like I couldn't imagine Donald Trump being elected.
Right.
Therefore, so my bias said there's nothing that can convince me otherwise. Right. So we have to get over that scar tissue. But I think also, if I'm going to make a prediction, it's that when Donald Trump loses, I believe you could point back to the immediate aftermath of George Floyd's death. Yes. And Trump's reaction, action, words, and his incitement to violence and ugliness and decision to embrace fully something, frankly, he's always done, which was racial animus and racial division in this country. And I think that is something, to Sarah's point and to Stuart's point, is that's just not the country we are. And thank God for it, frankly.
Yeah, that is so well said and so right on. Before we go here and let everyone go, and Stuart, I'm going to pass it to you in just a moment to land the plane. I want to remind everybody here who's listening that we are coming up on our last quarterly fundraising push, which is the end of Q3, and it is one of the most important fundraising deadlines we've faced thus far. It is next Wednesday at midnight, and so we're asking right now that if you can contribute, please do so either right now or before our deadline next week. We are here because of you. We never would have made it this far if it weren't for all of you. And as Sarah mentioned before, our average gift is about $50. That means that there are tons and tons, hundreds of thousands of you who are supporting this movement and enabling the work that we're doing right now in some of the most critical battleground states. So you are quite literally fueling this movement, and we need you to keep doing that through Election Day, because as you can see, if you're paying attention to the news, if you're listening to this conversation, the stakes just keep getting higher. So if you can go to the website right now, lincolnproject.us/donate. If you're watching live on the website, there should be a contribute button right there, a donate button. And if you can't contribute, that's okay. Please just sign up to get on our email list to get our updates. You can do that also at lincolnproject.us. Stuart, could you offer everyone some closing remarks before we go?
Sure. These next days are going to be anxious, and there's going to be a lot of stress. But, the way I look at this, we're really lucky to be in this moment. History, you can't pick history. History picks you. And for all of us that have asked ourselves, what would we have done if we stood on that bridge in Selma? Or what would we have done if we were at a lunch counter and freedom riders came in? This is a chance we get to prove who we are as individuals and as a nation. The sacrifice that we're called on for the next days is nothing compared to what's gone before. Those that courage isn't standing up to Donald Trump. Courage is getting out of the boat when the guy in front of you got shot. And that's the legacy that we have. And I think, frankly, that's the legacy that the Republican Party has largely abandoned and disgraced. But this is our moment. This is the moment we're going to look back on. And I think that we're going to look back on it with a feeling of great satisfaction, that we were a small part of something very big that was special. John McCain used to talk about being part of something larger than yourself. And we can do that now. And that's what this entire race is about. Most of us, our lives aren't going to be different in any sort of tangible way if Donald Trump wins or loses. It's about something bigger. It's about what sort of country we're leaving to others, and the statement of America's leadership in the world. I mean, right now, Angela Merkel's the leader of the free world. And thank God she's there. But really, I think America should be the leader of the free world. I think we should have a president that people look up to and don't laugh at. And that's our chance here. These are enormous stakes. And with enormous stakes comes enormous risk and enormous demand on attention. But I think we have this. Every day, everybody just needs to wake up and do their job. and not worry about the latest dip in the polls or the latest this. Just focus, do your job, and we'll win this, and we'll win it big. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, everybody,
Amen.
for being with us. Well said, Stuart. Thank you, Sarah and Reed. Stuart, thank you for being on tonight. And thanks to all of you for staying with us. We will see you again next week.